Chapter 11. We visit the Garden Gnome Emporium. In a way, it is nice to know that there are Greek gods out there, because you have someone to blame if things go wrong. For instance, when you are walking away from the bus that just been attacked by monsters and hags blow up by lightning, and it is raining on top of everything else. Most people might think that is just really bad luck. When you're half-blood, you understand that some divine force is trying to mess up your day. So there we were. Annabeth and Grover and I were walking through the woods along the New Jersey riverbank, the glow of New York City making the night sky yellow behind us, and the smell of Hudson reeking in our noses. Grover and shivering and braying, his big goat eyes turned split, purpled, and full of terror. Three kindly ones, all three at once. I was pretty much in shock myself. The explosion of the bus widow string rang in my ear, but Annabeth kept pulling us along, saying, "Come on, farther away we got, the better. All our money was back there," I reminded her. "Our food and clothes, everything." "Well, maybe if you hadn't decided to jump into the fight." "What did you want me to do? Let you get killed?" "You didn't need to protect me, Percy. I would have been fine. Sliced like sandwich bread." Grover put it in. "But fine. Shut up, goat boy," said Annabeth. Grover brayed mournfully. Tin cans. A perfectly good bag of tin cans. We sloshed across mushy ground through tasty twisted trees and smelled like sour laundry. After a few minutes, Annabeth fell into a line next to me. "Look, her voice flattered. "I would appreciate you coming back for us, okay? That was really brave. We're a team, right?" She was silent for a few more steps. "It just that if you died, aside from the fact that I would have been stuck for you, it would have mean that the quest was over. This was be my only chance to see the real world." The thunderstorm had finally let up. The city glows faded behind us, leaving us in almost total darkness. I couldn't see anything of Annabeth, excepting a glint of her blonde hair. "You haven't left Camp Half-Blood since you were 7, I asked her. "No, only short fields. My dad, the history professors. Yeah, it didn't work out for me living at home. I mean, Camp Half-Blood is my home." She was rushing her words out now, as if she was afraid somebody might try to stop her. "At the camp, you train, and that's all cool and everything, but the real world is where the monsters are, where you learn whether you're any good or not." If I didn't know better, I could have sworn I've heard double in her voice. "You're about pretty good with a knife," I said. "You think so?" "Anybody who is a piggy bank ride a furry is okay by me." I couldn't really see, but I thought she might have smiled. You know, she said, "maybe I should tell you something funny back on the bus." Whatever you wanted to say was interrupted by a shrine. "Toot, toot, toot." Look, the sound of an owl being tortured. Hey, my reed pipes still work, Grover cried. If I could just remember a fine path song, we could get out of these woods. He puffed out a few notes, but the tune still sounded suspiciously like Harley Duff. Instead of finding a path, I immediately slammed into a tree and got a nice sized knock on my head. Add to the list of superpowers, I did not have afraid vision. After tripping and cursing and generally feeling miserable for other miles or so, I started to see light up ahead, the colors of neon sign. I could smell food, fried greasy, excellent food. I realized I hadn't been eating unhealthy since I've arrived at Half-Blood Hill, where we lived on grapes, bread, cheese, and extra lean cut. Nim's preferred barbecue. This boy needed a double cheeseburger when kept walking until I saw Desert 2-lane road through the trees. On the other side was a closed-down gas station, a tattered billboard for the 1990s movies, and one open business, which was the source of neon light and the good smell. It wasn't a fast food restaurant like I hoped. It was one of those weird roadside curio shops that sell lawn flamingos and wooden Indians and sentiment grizzly bears and stuff like that. The main building was a long, low warehouse surrounded by areas of statues, and the neon sign above the gate was impossible for me to read, but if there's anything worse for the dyslexia than regular English, it read cursive neon English. To me, it looked like Antonimis, Gadurin, Jomi, Emporium. What the heck does that say? I asked. I don't know, Annabeth said. She loved reading so much, I'd forgotten she was dyslexia too. Grover translated Antonine's garden gnome Emporium. Flankly, the entrance was advertised with 2 sentiment garden gnomes. Ugly bearded little runts smiled and waving, as if they were about to get their picture taken. I crossed the street, following the smell of hamburgers. Hey, Grover warned. The lights are on inside, Annabeth said. Maybe it's open. Snack bar? I said wistfully. Snack bar, she agreed. Are you too crazy? Grover said. This place is weird. We ignored him. The front lot was forest of statues, sediment, animals, sediment children. Even a sediment salter playing the pipes, which gave Grover the creeps. Blah, ha, ha. He bleeped. Looks like my Uncle Ferdinand. We stopped at the warehouse door. Don't knock, Grover pleaded. I smell monsters. Your nose is clogged up, the Furines. Annabeth told him. All I smell is burgers. Aren't you hungry? Meat, he said scornfully. I am a vegetarian. You can eat cheese, each chiladas and Julium cans. I remembered him. Those are vegetables. Come on, let's leave. These stardies are looking at me. Then the door creaked open, and standing in front of the wall, front of us, was a tall Middle Eastern woman. At least I assumed she was Middle Eastern because she wore a long black gown that covered everything, but her hands and her head was completely veiled. Her eyes glinted behind a curtain. The black guys, but that was about all I could make out. Her coffee-colored hands looked old, but, well, manicured and alleged. So I imagined she was a grandmother who had been a beautiful lady. Her accidentally sound visibly Middle Eastern too. She said, "Children, it is too late to be out all alone. Where are your parents?" Annabeth started to say, "We're orphans," I said. "Orphans?" The woman said the word sounded aliens in her mouth. "But, my dears, surely not. We got separated from our caravan," I said. "Our circus caravan. The ringmaster told us to meet him at the gas station if we got lost. But he may have forgotten. Or maybe he meant a different gas station anyway. We're lost in that food I smell." "Oh, my dears," the woman said. "You must come in, poor children. I am Antum. Go straight through the back of the warehouse, please. There is a dining area." We thanked her and went out inside. Annabeth muttered to me, "Circus craven, always. I have a strategy, right? Your head is full of kelp." The warehouse was filled with more statues, people, all different poses, were all different outfits and different impressions on their face. I was thinking you'd have to have a pretty huge garden to fit even one of these statues because they were all life-size, but mostly I was thinking about food. Go ahead. Call me an idiot for walking into a strange lady's shop like that just because I was hungry. But I didn't do impulsive stuff sometimes. Plus, you'll never smell anti burgers. The arm was like laughing gas. In the distance chair, it made everything else go away. I barely noticed Grover nervously whimpered, or the way the statue eyes seemed to follow me, or the fact that Auntie had locked the door behind us. All I cared about was finding the dining area, and sure enough, it was at the back of the warehouse. I tasted the food counter with the grill, a soda fountain, and pretzel hurting, and a nacho cheese dispenser. Everything you could want, plus a few stale picnic tables out front. Please sit down, and Team Anta said. Awesome, I said. Grover said reluctantly. We don't have any money, Mama. Before I could jab him into the ribs, Anna M. said, No, children, no money. This is a special case, yes? It is my treat for such nice orphans. Thank you, Mama, Annabeth said. Anna M. sniffed as if Goat had done something wrong, but then the old woman relaxed just as quickly, so I figured out it must have been immigration. Quite all right, Annabeth, she said. You have such beautiful gray eyes, child. Only later did I wonder how she knew Annabeth's name, even though she had never introduced herself. Our hostess disappeared between the snack counter and started cooking. Before we knew it, she brought us plastic trays heaped with double cheeseburger, vanilla shakes, and XXL serving of French fries. I was halfway through my cheeseburger before I remembered to breathe. Annabeth slurped her shake. Grover picked at the fries, and the eyes of the tray waxed paper line. If you might go for that. But he still looked nervous to eat. What? That hissing noise. What's that hissing noise? He asked. I listened, but I didn't hear anything. Annabeth shook her head. Hissing? Entom asked, perhaps. You hear the deep frying oil? You have been Ken Ears Grover. I take vitamins for my ears. That's unbearable, she said, but please relax. Entom ate nothing. She hadn't taken off her headdress, even to cook. And now she sat forward and interlaced her fingers and watched us eat. It was a little unsettling having someone stare at me when I couldn't see her face, but I was feeling satisfied after the burger and a little sleepy, and I figured the least I could do was try to make small talk with our hostess. So, you sell gnomes? I said, trying to sound interested. Oh, yes, Antom said. And animals. And people. Anything for the garden. And people, anything for the garden. Customers' orders, celery, if very popular, you know. A lot of business on the road. Not so much, no. Since the highway was built, most cars, they do not go this way now. I must cherish every customer I get. My neck tingled as if somebody else was looking at me. I turned, but it was just a statue, a young girl holding an Easter basket. The detail was incredible, much better than you see in most garden statues. But something was wrong with her face. It looked like she was startled or even terrified. Ah, Entomum said sadly, you notice some of my creation do not turn out well. There are mattered. They do not sell The face is the hardest to get right. Always the face. You make these statues yourself? I asked. Oh, yes. Once upon a time, I had 2 sisters help me in my business, but they have passed on, and Antum is alone. I have my statues. This is why I make them. You see, they are my company. The sadness in her voice sounded so deep and so real that I couldn't help feeling sorry for her. Annabeth had stopped eating, so she sat forward and said, 2 sisters? It's a terrible story, Adam said. Not one for children, really. You see, Annabeth, a bad woman was jealous of me. Long ago, when I was young, I had a boyfriend, you know, and this bad woman was determined to break us apart. She caused a terrible accident. My sisters stayed by me. They shared my bad fortune as long as they could, but eventually they passed on. They faded away. I alone have survived but at a price. Such a price. I wasn't sure what she meant, but I felt bad for her. My eyelids kept getting heavier. My full stomach made me sleepy. Poor old lady. Who would want to hurt somebody so nice? Percy Annabeth was shaking me to get attention. Maybe we should go. I mean, the ringmaster will be waiting. She sounded tense. I wasn't sure why. Grover was eating the wax paper off the tray now. But if Anton found out, the strange that we didn't say anything. Such beautiful gray eyes, Anton, said Annabeth again. My yes, if you have been a long time since I have seen gray eyes like those. Annabeth reached out as if to stroke Annabeth's cheeks. Annabeth stood up and brutally, we really should go. Yes, Grover swallowed his wax paper and stood up. The ringmaster is waiting, right? I didn't want to leave. I felt full of content. Antonym was so nice. I wanted to stay with her a while. Please, dears, Antonym pled. I so rarely get to be with children before you go. Won't you at least sit for a pose? A pose? Asked warily. A photograph. I will use it to model a new statue, said children. Are you so popular? You see, everyone loves children. Annabeth shifted her weight from foot to foot. I don't think we can, Mama. Come on, Percy. Sure, we can, I said. I was enraged with Annabeth for being so bossy, so rude to an old lady who'd just fed us for free. It's just a photo, Annabeth. What's the harm? Yes, Annabeth, the woman poured. No harm. I could tell Annabeth didn't like it, but she allowed Antonym to lead us back to the front door until the garden of the statues. Antonym was directed directed up to the park bench next to the stone. "Satyr, now," she said. "I'll just position you correctly." The young girl in the middle. I think two young planted on either side. Not much light for a photo, I remarked. "Oh, enough," Antonym said. "Enough for us to see each other, yes?" "Where's your camera?" Grover asked. Antonym stepped back as to admire the shot. Now the face was most difficult. "Can you smile for me, please, everyone?" A large smile. Grover glanced at the common sentiment satyr next to him and mumbled, "That sure does looks like Uncle Vernon and Grover." Anta jaspered. "Look this way, dear." She still had no camera in her hands. "Percy," Annabeth said. Said instance warned me to listen to Annabeth, but I was fighting the sleeping feeling, the comfortable lull that came from the food and the old lady's voice. I will just be a moment," Antonym said. "You know, I can't see you very well in this cursed bill." "Percy, something's wrong," Annabeth insisted. "Wrong?" Antonym said, reaching up to the undo wrap around her head. "Not at all, dear. I had such noble company tonight. What could be wrong?" "That is Uncle Ferdinand," Grover gasped. "Look away from her," Annabeth shouted. She whimped her Yankees cap onto her head and vanished. Her invisible hands pushed Grover and me both off the bench. I was on the ground looking at Antonym Saladin feet. I could hear Grover scrambling off the direction. Annabeth is in another, but I was too dazed to move. Then I heard a strange rasping noise sound above me. My eyes, nose, and Antonym's hand, which had turned grand and wartedly with sharp brownies talons for fingernails. I almost sloped higher, but somewhere off the left, Annabeth screamed, "No, don't!" More rasping, the sound of tiny snakes right above me from about where Antonym head would be. "Run!" Grover bleated. I heard him racing across the gravel yelling, "Meme!" or "Meme!" to kickstart his flying sneakers. I couldn't move. I started at Antonym's glen claws and started to fight the grudgy trance the old woman had put me in, such as pity to destroy a handsome young face. She told me soothingly, "Stay with me, Percy. All you have to do is look up." I fought the urge to obey. Instead, I looked into the side and saw one of those glass serpents people put in the garden, a gazing ball. I couldn't see Antonym's dark reflection in the orange glass. Her headdress was gone, leaving her face a shimmering, pale circle. Her face was moving within like serpents. Antonym, how could I have been so stupid? I think I told myself, how did Medusa die in the myth? But I couldn't think. Something told me that in the myth, Medusa had been asleep when she was attacked by a namesake Percy. She wasn't near asleep now. If she wanted, she could take those talons right now and rake open my face. The gray-eyed one did this to me. Percy, Medusa said. And she didn't sound anything like a monster. Her voice invited me to look up, to sit with a poor old grandmother. Annabeth, mother to cursed Annabeth, turned me into a beautiful woman into this. Don't listen to her. Annabeth's voice shouted, somewhere is a satyr. Run, Percy! Silence, Medusa startled. Then her voice modulated back to comforting pure. You see why I must destroy the statue, her statue in dust. But you, dear Percy, you need not suffer. No, I muttered. I tried to make my legs move. Do you really want to help the gods? Medusa asked Percy. Well, what will happen if you reach the underworld? Do you not be a pawn of the Olympians, my dear? You wouldn't be Percy behind me. I heard buzzing sounds like 200 pounds of hummingbirds, and the noise died. Grover yelled, ducks! I turned, and he was in the night sky, flying in from 12 o'clock with the wings, shoes flooded. Grover holding a tree branch the size of a baseball bat. His eyes were shut tight. His head twitched from side to side. He was navigating by ears and nose alone. Duck, he yelled again. I'll get her. That finally jolted me into action. Knowing Grover, I had sure he'd hiss, Medusa and nail me. I dove to one side. Thwack! At the first, I figured that the sound of Grover hitting the tree. Medusa roared with rage. You miserable satyr, she sneered. I'll add you to my collection. That was for Uncle Ferdinand. Grover yelled back. I scrambled away and hid the Sultar with Grover snooped down with another pass. Crack! Arr! Medusa yelled. Her snake hair hissed and spiked twing. Right next to me, Annabeth's voice said, Percy! I jumped so high my feet nearly cleared the garden gnome. Geez, don't do that. Annabeth took off her Yankees cap and became visible. You have to cut her head off. What? Are you crazy? Let's get out of here. Medusa is a menace. She's evil. I've killed her myself, but Annabeth swallowed as if you were about to make a difficult admission. But you've got the better weapon. Besides, I've never I'd never get close to her. She'd slice me to bits because of my mother. You've got a chance. What? I can't. Look, do you want her turning more innocent people into statues? She pointed to a pair of statues lower. A man and a woman with their arms around each other turned to stone by a monster. Annabeth grabbed a green grazing ball from a nearby pedestal. A polished shield would be better. She studied the spear critically. The convexity will cause some distortion. The reflection size should be off by a factor of. Would you speak English? I am. She tossed me a glass ball. Just look at her in the glass. Never look at her directly. Her guys. Never look directly at her guys. Grover yelled somewhere above us. I think she's unconsciously. War. Maybe not, Grover corrected. He went in for another pass with the tree branch. Hurry, Annabeth told me. Grover got a great nose, but he'll eventually crash. I took out my pen and uncrapped it. The bronze blade of Riptide, a knowledge in my hand. I followed the hissing and sprinting sound of Medusa's hair. I kept my eyes locked on the gazing ball, so I would only glimpse Medusa's reaction, not the real thing. Then in the green tinted glass, I saw her. Grover was coming in for another turn at the bat, but this time he flew a little too low. Medusa grabbed the stick and pulled him off course. He trembled through the air and crashed into the arms of a strong grizzly bear with a painful oomph. Medusa was still about to lunge at him, but I yelled, "Hey!" I advised on her, which wasn't easy, holding a sword, and a glass ball. If she charged, I'd have a hard time defending myself. But she let me approach 10 feet. I could see the reflection on her face. Now, surely it wasn't really that ugly. The green swirls of the grazing ball must be distorting, and making it look worse. You wouldn't harm an old woman, Percy, she crooned. I know you wouldn't. I fancied my face. I saw a reflection of the glass, and her eyes seemed to burn straight through the green tint, making my arms go weak. From her cinnamon grizzly, Grover moaned, "Percy, don't listen to her." Medusa crackled, "Too late." She lunged at me with her talon. I slashed up with my sword, heard a sicking schlock, then a hiss like wind rushing out of a cavern. The sound of a monster destroying something fell into the ground next to my foot. It looked all my willpower not to look. I could feel a warm ooze soaking into my sock. Little dying snake head tugging out the shoelaces. "Oh, yuck," Grover said. His eyes were still closed, but I guessed he could hear the thing gurgling and streaming. Mega yuck. Annabeth came up to me, her eyes fixed on the sky. She was holding Medusa's black veil. She said, "Don't move." Very, very carefully, without looking down, she knelt and wrapped the monster's head in black cloth. Then she picked it up. It was still dripping green juice. "Are you okay?" she asked me, her voice trembling. "Yeah, I decided though. I felt like throwing up my double cheeseburger. Why didn't that evaporate? Once you serve it, it becomes a spoil of war," she said. "Same of the Minotaur horn, but don't unwrap the head. It can still petrify you." Grover moaned as he climbed down the grizzly statue. As he had a big welt on his forehead, his green raised camp hung for one of his little goat horns, and his fake feet had been knocked out of his hooves. The magic sneakers were flying himless around his head. "The Red Baron," I said. "Good job, man." He managed a bashful grin that really was not fun. Though hitting her with a stick, but that was fun. But crashing into the concrete bear, not fun. He snatched his shoes out of the air. I recapped my sword together. The three of us stumbled back to the warehouse. Sword together, the three of us trundled back into the warehouse. We found some old plastic grocery bag behind the snack counter, the double-wrapped Medusa head. We plopped into on the table. We eaten dinner and sat around too exhausted to speak. Finally, I said, "So we have Athena to thank for this monster." Annabeth flashed me into an interval look that Dad actually, don't you remember? Medusa was Poseidon's girlfriend. They decided to meet in the mother's temple. That's why Athena turned into a monster. Medusa and her two sisters, who had helped her get into the temple, they became the three Gorgons. That's why Medusa wanted to slice me up. But she wanted to preserve you as a nice statue. She still sweat on her dad. You probably reminded her of him. My face was burning. Oh, so now it felt my fault we met Medusa. Annabeth straightened in a bad iteration of my voice. She said, "It's just a photo, Annabeth. What's the harm?" "Forget it," I said. "You're impossible. You're insurfable. You're..." Hey, Grover interrupted. You two are giving me a migraine, and satyrs don't even get migraines. What are we going to do with her head? As I started at the thing, one little snake was hanging out of the hole in the plastic. And the words printed on the side of your bag said, "Well, appreciated your business." I was angry that just with Annabeth, her mom, but with all the gods, for this whole quest, for getting us blown off the road and into major fights the very first day out from camp. At this rate, we never make it to LA alive, much less before the summer solstice. What had Medusa said? Do not be a pawn of the Olympians, my dear. You would be better off as a statue. I got up. I'll be back, Percy and Annabeth called after me. What are you? What are you? I said search the back of the warehouse until I found Medusa's office. Her account book showed her 6 most recent sales, all shipments of the underworld to decorate Hades and Persephone's garden. According to one fright, Bill the underworld billing address was Dura Recording Studios, West Hollywood, California. I folded up the bill and stuffed it in my pocket. In the cash register, I found $20, a few golden drachmas, and said packing slips for Hermes' overnight address, each with a little leather badge attached for coins. I rummaged around the rest of the office until I found the right size box. I went to a picnic table, picked up Medusa's head, and filled up the delivery slip. The Gods Mount Olympians, 600th floor, Empire State Building, New York, which with best wishes, Percy Jackson. They're not going to like that, Grover warned. You'll think they're impertinent. I poured some gold drachmas in the pouch. As soon as I closed it, there was a sound like a cash register. The packaging floated off the table and disappeared with a pop. I am impertinent, I said. I looked at Annabeth, daring her to criticize. She didn't. She seemed resigned to the fact that I had a major talent for ticking off the gods. Come on, she muttered. We need a new plan.